All right. Top of the day, beautiful people. Y'all bright and early, ready to go. Get some of these peppermint drops. Take my hey y'all, hey. All right, beautiful people. Vinette, Shebrew, Tabitha. Top of the day, ladies. All right, y'all, it's Friday, January the 20th, 2023. It is day 320 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, another 4-year consecutive day count, day 1,339. Couple weeks. Hold on. Yeah, couple weeks. Get my calculations right. Couple weeks, we're going to be entering into year 5. I know it don't start January and go to December because we started this in November 2018. Yeah, so when we get to like 364 days, we begin the next year. So it'd be year 5 and 364 days. If it was a leap year, we count for the extra day. But anyway, y'all, today we're going to be picking back up in The Romance of the Red Star, which is another name for a waspy by different publishers. Possibly, but they saying that it's not John Land. We don't even know, for real. But we're going to keep reading it. But it's another name for the Owaspy. And then we're going to jump over here in Delusions and Science and Spirituality and read more of Chapter 7 of the Reincarnation chapter. It's a little more in-depth study over here. All right, beautiful people. Father, we thank you for the light of the sun. Without it, things wouldn't grow appropriately here. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and pick back up on page 13. And it's actually beginning a new book or a new cycle according to Romance of the Red Star. And we're starting with the cycle of Sathantes. And then Big Blue, that begins on page 14. Book of Sathantes, son of Jehovah, first God of the first cycle of the earth after man's creation. IG Shalom, sis. Tony Greenhouse. What's going on, Brother Fritz? Shalom, shalom. Hannah, shalom. Mom, shalom. And everybody else here hanging out in the background in both places, Facebook and YouTube. Yes, thanking the Creator for an early rise and a beautiful family. Yes. All right, beautiful people. So let's get started. Dawn, what's good? Miss Amazing Wonders. How you doing, Nava? All right, y'all. Cycle of Sathantes. Chapter 1. Jehovah called the angels of atmosphere to assemble together and organize the first kingdom of heaven of the earth. And the place was called Horeb, because it was the first organic abiding place of the first God of this world. And Horeb was situated above the mountains of Eeltan and Ugokwi to the eastward of Ul. Looks like UL. Of that country called the continent of Pan. And the archangel Sathantes was the wisest of them all. And he said unto them, Behold, we have come from far off heavens. By the voice of Jehovah came we to partake of the glory of the red star, earth. Jehovah said unto us, Come ye and enjoy the new world I have created. And many obeyed the voice of Korpor and became bound by the tie of life which is in the blood. So this, I think this means, this goes back to Genesis chapter 6, where the sons of man came, where the sons of God came down and cohabited with the sons of man, right? Let me read that again. Behold, we have come from far off heavens. By the voice of Jehovah came we to partake of the glory of the red star, earth. Jehovah said unto me, Come ye and enjoy the new world I have created. And many obeyed the voice of Korpor and became bound by the tie of life which is in the blood. So remember, when they came down and they had sex with the daughters of men, they became responsible for the offspring. So they bound themselves to the tie of life, which is found in the blood, right? That's exactly what they're saying. And the voice of Jehovah came to me, saying, Sathantes, behold, I gave into thy charge in my Ethereal heavens millions of angels, and thou hast brought them to earth, and they have fallen from their high estate. If I would have just kept reading, it would have told us that. Elijah, shalom, shalom, great spirit, peace, and blessings to my family out there in the UK. And a voice of Jehovah came to me, saying, Sathantes, my son, behold, I gave into thy charge in my Ethereal heavens millions of angels, and thou hast brought them to earth, and they have fallen from their high estate. Go thou and deliver them. And I said, What shall I do? And Jehovah said, Bring thy angel host to Horeb, for there will I crown thee God of earth, for the resurrection of angels and mortals. And there shall be a heavenly kingdom from this time forth to the end of the world. For it is the time of the ark of Wan, and I will bring from Ethera my high-raised goddess, Etizai, chief factor of Harmutz, and she shall crown thee in my name, God of earth. God said, When I had thus spoken in Horeb before the angels of heaven, a great light, like a sun, was seen descending from the firmament above, and I commanded my Esenars to chant in praise of Jehovah and his works. Meanwhile, I had the angels of Horeb numbered, and there were of them 27,600,000, and these were the same who were on an excursion in my charge when the voice of Jehovah commanded us to visit earth. The light above descended fast toward us. The ship of fire came nearer and nearer till we saw that it was wider than the place of Horeb and all my angel hosts. And when it had descended to the plateau of Horeb, there came forth out of the ship 1,000,000 archangels from the ark of Wan and the host of Aji in the orbit of Phosang and Ethera, and they bore regalia and crowns from the Orion chief of Harmutz. Foremost of the archangels was Etizai and her brother Yatihaga, commissioners from the Ethereal heavens. When they came near, Etizai gave the sign of Jehovah's name, greeting and saying, All hail in Jehovah's name, and in the love of Harmutz, Orion chief, we come and greet and crown the first God of the lower heaven, belonging to the corporal earth. The archangels then came forward, saluting, and Etizai said, In thy name, O Jehovah, I found here a throne. And she caused to rise the form of substance thereof. Then I said, All hail, O emissaries of Harmutz. Come, Etizai, thou and thy brother, honor my throne in great Jehovah's name. And she ascended thereon, and Yatihaga with her. And the other archangels formed a crescent in front of the throne, and all of them bearing crowns or diadems, but they stood upright. And now the angel hosts of Sathantes took their places that they might witness the testimony of Jehovah's commission, but the lights from the columns of fire, brilliant in all colors, shades, and tints, baffled many of them from seeing plainly. When all things were in readiness, Etizai, standing erect and brilliant like a star, raised her right hand, saying, Jehovah, all wise and powerful. In thy name, this, thy son, I crown God. From the Orion chief Harmut, raised to the rank of God, and by thee, O Jehovah, ordained, henceforth to be known forever in thy emancipated heavens as thy son, peace, wisdom, love, power. And with her left hand she raised high the crown, so that all might see and bear witness, again giving the sign of Jehovah's name above the crown, whatever that sign was she made, where from a flame of light shot forth brilliantly, she placed the crown on God's head, saying, Arise, O my son, thou son of Jehovah. Instantly there arose from the millions of souls one universal shout, All hail, O son of Jehovah. And God rose up, having the crown on his head, and the people cheered him heartily, for he was well beloved. Etizia said, Bring forth thy 5 chief lords, that I may crown them also. God then caused the 5 chief lords, whom he had selected, to sit at the foot of the throne. Again, Etizia raised her right hand, saying, O Jehovah, Almighty, from whom all glories emanate, in thy name these thy sons I crown, lords of earth and the warders of the earth. From the Orion chief Harmut, by my commission do I raise them to the rank of lords for kingdoms of heaven, peace, wisdom, love, power. Then Etizia took the crowns which were handed her by the other archangels and placed them on the heads of the lords, saying, Arise, O my lords, and be ye lords of Jehovah for his glory, and be ye lords of God, having dominion over the earth and the waters of the earth, in love, wisdom, and power. Amen. The lords rose up, having on their heads the crowns of lords, and again the multitude saluted with great cheering. When the applause ceased, Etizia said, My God and my lords, give now the sign of Jehovah's name, that his glory may be fulfilled. For this was the oath of office. And God said, and God and his lords saluted Jehovah before the hosts of heaven, and they stood apart a little distance. And Etizia said, Behold, the all-light Jehovah encompass me. My voice shall be his voice. By the glory of faith in him, I am one with the Father. And a fleece of golden hue descended from above and encompassed Etizia around about, and she was like a central star with rays of light emanating. She was entranced by Jehovah. Through her, the Creator spoke, saying, see how when a Creator speak, or when somebody from his line of light speak, that it's like you know about it. It ain't all of a sudden, it seemed like you got a tick or something and somebody start talking through you. No, that's completely out of order and out of line, and it's pretty doggone scary to say the least. Christina, hey girl, hey. Okay, you say it's good. All right, well, we good then. All right, Tiffany, hey girl, hey. Ema, shalom. La Beauty, shalom, sis. Rita, good morning. All right, let me see. Behold, the all-light Jehovah encompassed me. My voice shall be his voice. By the glory of faith in him, I am one with the Father. And a fleece of golden hue descended from above and encompassed Etizia around about, and she was like a central star with rays of light emanating. She was entranced by Jehovah. Through her, the Creator spoke, saying, My son, God, I brought thee forth out of torpor, quickened into life everlasting. By faith I inspired thee to do whatsoever thou hast done. Faith gave I unto thee as the tree, thereon all perfection is the fruit. By the faith within man that nurtureth the I am within himself unto perfection, becometh he my son by doing by virtue of my presence. According to thy wisdom and love have I given thee strength, and by thy strength raised thee up. Behold, this day I have given thee a kingdom, an atmosphere, and made thee God before all the kingdom of heaven. This place shall be thy place, and mine also. Here shalt thou dispense laws and wisdom, and appoint officers in my name, and by virtue of my power. And thy kingdom shall be like 2 kingdoms, one here with the hosts of heaven, and one on earth with these thy lords. For thine is the judgment seat, and thou art the creator of order over the whole earth. Stretch forth thy hand, my son, and clothe thyself in the golden fleece. God made a sign, or at this time, God is now Sathantes, right? Remember, God is a title, the one who's in charge of the earth and her heavens, right? And it changes with every cycle during the period and cycles of the earth, right? God made the sign and then raised his hands upward, saying, Jehovah, Jehovah, by thy power I call thee to array me in thy golden fleece. Behold, I am thy son. So remember, God and creator is not the same, right? Okay. Just remember, Jehovah, according to Owaspi, is the great creator, or what a lot of us call mistakenly God, right? But creator knew who he was talking about. God made the sign and then raised his hands upward, saying, Jehovah, Jehovah, by thy command I call upon thee. Array me in thy golden fleece. Behold, I am thy son. And the archangels tossed up the raiment and regalia they had brought from their Etherian ark in Aji, and by the faith that was in God, the substance flew to him and encompassed him in raiment of the upper heaven. Then Jehovah spake to the Lord, saying, As God hath built a kingdom in Horeb, and reigneth over this heaven, and over you and your helpmates, so shall you build a kingdom on the earth, and ye shall rule over mortals in my name, teaching them of me and my everlasting kingdoms in the firmament above. In testimony of my voice, receive ye this raiment of silver and gold from my archangels. The archangels then draped the Lords in shining raiment, and Etizai came down from the throne, still entranced, saying, Though my daughter Etizai will raise up in a flame of fire, yet will I, even Jehovah, abide with thee, O God, and with ye, my lords, now and forever. And then Etizai took God's hand and led him to the center of the throne, saying, Sit thou on this throne, for it is thy father's kingdom and the lower heaven of the earth. Then God sat down, the entrancement departed from Etizai, and the light of Jehovah went and settled upon God and the Lords. But Etizai sat down at the foot of the throne, and thereupon all the archangels sat down also. God said, Behold, she that is greatest maketh herself least of all. First of all, it's just called a woman the greatest. I just want to point that out if y'all want to pay attention. You know, we can go back. We can get sidetracked. I'm just saying. I get it. But I just wanted to, you know. Then God sat down, the entrancement departed from Etizai, and the light of Jehovah went and settled upon God and the Lords. But Etizai sat down at the foot of the throne, and thereupon all the archangels sat down also. God said, Behold, she that is greatest maketh herself least of all. Arise, O daughter of Jehovah, and enjoy my kingdom, for it is Jehovah's also. And God came down from the throne and took Etizai's hand, and she rose up, whereupon God proclaimed the freedom of the hour. Thus was established the first throne of God in these heavens, and now all the hosts mingled together, angels and archangels, joyfully. All right, we're going to read the next chapter because we have 18 minutes. So we'll read chapter 2, and we're going to pause. We're in the cycle of Sathantes, or book of Sathantes, son of Jehovah. And this is the Sathantes, remember, is the first god of the earth when earth became a habitable place where mortals were now being born, right? We got to set order in place, like ranks. If you've ever been in the military, there has to be ranks over all this different stuff, right? So just like we have order here, even in households with parents and then children, there has to be somebody in charge of all of this stuff. And God is it. He's like the HNIC, right? The heavens and the earth. And his chain of command are the Lords, Lord gods. You got guardian angels, Ashars that are in the higher heavens, right? So it's ranks and lines above and below, right? And it trickles down to us mortals who should be developing spiritually because we are like them of spirit. We just haven't shed our mortal shell yet, right? But this is training. This is school for us to raise us up until we are fully born spirit, right? Which we inadvertently call death here, right? So, but we'll be getting into that. Chapter 2, page 15 in Romance of the Red Star. Remember, that's just another name for a waspy. And in Big Blue is page 16. Page 16. When the hour was ended, God again ascended the throne, and the marshals raised the signals of order, and the archangels went and stood in a crescent in front of the throne. Etizii sat at the feet of God, and the splendor of her form, unadorned, save with white and yellow drapery, shone through all the talents Jehovah had given her, the perfection of purity, wisdom, and love, the like of which only gods had looked upon. God said, in thy name, O Jehovah, do I now found the session of thy kingdom in the lower heaven. As long as man and woman shall bring forth heirs upon the earth unto thee, this kingdom shall not cease to glorify thee. Let the lords approach the throne, the Essenars now saying, and in the meantime the marshals and escorts conducted the lords before the throne. When they were in order, the music ceased, and God said, 5 great divisions of the earth there are, and I have ordained ye the 5 lords thereof in Jehovah's name. According to the number of inhabitants on the earth's divisions, your relative rank before heaven have I placed you. When ye have seated yourselves in your respective kingdoms, ye shall have each 12 messengers, whose duties shall be betwixt you and me. Choose ye therefore your messengers this hour, that ere the resurrection of the archangels, they may be confirmed in their registry born in heaven above. The Lords chose their messengers, and they were confirmed in the name of Jehovah, and swift messengers who ply with the upper heavens made a record of their names and places. Thereupon God said to them, according to your talents have you been chosen. According to your excellence will you be promoted to wider fields of labor. May the love, wisdom, and power of Jehovah be with you all. Amen. And now Etizii signified that her time of departure had arrived. God came down from the judgment seat, and standing one moment in sorrow, reached forth and took Etizii's hand, saying, arise, O daughter of Jehovah, and go thy way. Etizii rose up, and pointing upward said, my home is in the ark of Juan. Jehovah dwelleth with thee and me. My swift messengers shall come to thee at times. My love will abide with thee and thy lords, and the harvest of thy resurrections. Read it over. Etizii rose up, pointing upward, said, my home is in the ark of Juan. Jehovah dwelleth with thee and me. My swift messengers will come to thee at times. My love will abide with thee and thy lords, and the harvest of thy resurrection. In Jehovah's name, farewell. Etizii then walked to the ship of fire, but ere she entered, she turned and took one more look at the host of Horeb, and then, stripping from the frames, luminous drapery, cast it playfully over the Essenars, and quickly disappeared into the light. That's going to be me one day. All right, y'all, I'm out. It's many millennia before I get to that stage and age. Etizii then walked to the ship of fire, but ere she entered, she turned and took one more look at the host of Horeb. Then, stripping from the frames, luminous drapery, cast it playfully over the Essenars, and quickly disappeared in the light. The Essenars chanted, and the host of archangels joined in with them, and began in that same moment of time. The Essenars chanted, and the host of archangels joined in with them. And in that same moment of time, the ship began to rise, and it was as thousands of columns of fire surrounding one majestic column, and the whole circle rising in spiral form, turning and raising, rising and turning, turning and rising, rising and turning. And when it was a little way up, it seemed like an ascending sun, and then higher and higher, like a far off star. And then it passed beyond the vision of the angels of Horeb. When order was proclaimed, the all light, remember the all light is another name for creator, which we also call Jehovah in here, right? When order was proclaimed, the all light began to gather around about the throne, covering over God and the Lord's. Covering over God and the Lord's. Jehovah, through God, said, Hear ye, for I abide also with thee, my lords of the hosts of heaven. The Lord said, What shall we do? And Jehovah answered, Summon all the angels to pass before the throne of God, one by one, that I may judge them. For as many as dwell on any of my corporal worlds of the second rate shall abide in the kingdom of Horrid, and their labor shall be with the Esians only. But all of the full of the first rate shall abide in the kingdoms of my lords, and their labor shall be with mortals on earth. Then the marshals arranged the angels, and they passed in front of the throne, and those destined for labor in atmosphere only turned one way, and those for the earth as ministering spirits turned the other way. And when they had all passed, they were correctly divided according to Jehovah's commandment. God said, Hear me, O ye lords, take your laborers and repair to your respective places on the divisions of the earth and the waters of the earth, and ye shall be lords with me, your God, for the glory of Jehovah. Whatsoever ye do on earth, will I ratify in heaven. Whomsoever ye deliver from the earth, will I receive in heaven. As ye shape and build up mortal man, delivering his spirit into my kingdom, so will I receive him. That your kingdoms may accord with me and mine, I will give you messengers sufficient, and they shall pass daily betwixt us, according to their proficiency and power, to pass from place to place. So have I chosen them. Let a record be kept within your own kingdoms, and these records shall be your own, to be carried upward with you in the next resurrection to Ethera. And yet ye shall have a record jointly with me, separate from your own record, pertaining to your kingdom's relation with mine. When mortals die and are born in spirit, ye shall enter them into your records as Esians. And for these Esians ye shall provide temporary abodes, where they shall tarry, some for a few days, and some for the space of 1 year or more. Of their numbers and conditions ye shall inform me through the messengers, and I will send ships to bring them to my kingdom. Ye shall appoint Asaphs, whose office it shall be to receive Esians from the Ashars. Remember, the Ashars receive Esians from the Ashars. Okay. The Ashars are the guardian angels, right? Those are the ones that are with you here. The Ashars deliver you and your record to the Asaphs, which deliver you to the kingdom where you are to go after you return your flesh to the dust. Let me go back. When mortals die and are born in spirit, ye shall enter them into your record as Esians. And for these Esians ye shall provide temporary abodes, where they shall tarry. Hold on. I broke that up. It should have been broken up. Okay. When mortals die and are born in spirit, ye shall enter them into your records as Esians. And for these Esians ye shall provide temporary abodes, where they shall tarry, some for a few days, and some for the space of 1 year or more. Of their numbers and conditions ye shall inform me through the messengers, and I will send ships to bring them to my kingdom. Ye shall appoint Asaphs, whose office it shall be to receive the Esians from the Ashars. Whilst a mortal is alive on earth, the Ashars shall abide with him, guarding him in Jehovah's name. That's your guardian angel. And when he dies, the Ashar shall deliver the Esian to the Asaph, saying, In Jehovah's name, receive this newborn spirit. He was my protege. For the good or evil in him, charge thou me. And the Ashar shall deliver up a record of the mortal life of the Esian, and the record shall be kept within your own kingdoms. And the Asaph shall take the Esian, saying, In Jehovah's name, receive I this newborn spirit. He shall then take the Esian, to the place provided to receive it, where it will have nurses and attendants according to its requirements. When ships come to your kingdoms, the Asaphs shall deliver all the Ezians they have received and bring them to my place in heaven. When God ended, the Lord's answered, we will labor with thee for the glory of Jehovah. Right, Jasmine, that's exactly what it is. They said a process of vetting someone when entering from corporal to S, right? When you die and go to heaven, they vetting you to see where you should go, right? We know some their records weren't so hot. They hanging around here. Listen. God said, to each of you have I given a great division of the earth, and each division shall be named after you. This then was the rank assigned: Waga, Jud, Thori, Vohu, and Dis, and the lands were called after the names of the lords, and so entered in the books of heaven in Horeb. And so remember, Waga is Pan, Jud is Asia, Thori is America, also called Gautama or North and South Gautama. You have Vohu, which is Africa, and Dis, D-I-S, which is Europe. This then was the rank assigned: Waga, Jud, Thori, Vohu, and Dis, and the lands were called after the names of the lords, and so entered in the books of heaven in Horeb. When all was finished, the lords came and sat at the foot of the throne, and the Essenars chanted a hymn of praise to Jehovah, and the entire multitude joined therein. I can't keep going off here. Stephen, shalom, shalom. Hold on. When all was finished, the lords came and sat at the foot of the throne, and the Essenars chanted a hymn of praise to Jehovah, and the entire multitude joined therein. When the hymn was ended, God rose up, standing midst a sea of light, and raising up both hands, saying, O Jehovah, almighty and everlasting, help us establish this, thy kingdom, for thy glory. Then making the sign of Jehovah's name with his right hand, he came down to the foot of the throne, and taking the hand of Waga, Lord of Waga, he said, Arise, my son, and go thy way, and Jehovah will bless thee. Waga rose up, stood aside, and then in like manner, God raised the other four lords, and they stood aside also. I was about to bust out and start laughing because I remember what I said when we had started reading this over again before we found the so-called John lamp plates, which was actually the El Paso Owaspy, right? But I was joking Waga about him, not really joking, but I just thought it was funny just remembering that Waga was actually a person and Pan was his division of the earth, and he couldn't keep it under control. Like, he lost the whole, they literally had to sink his portion of the earth, right? And so after they sunk his portion of the earth, he was kind of displaced. And it was like, yeah, where dude gonna go? You want to send him back to the upper heavens? Because he ain't coming over here helping me with my country. And it was like, he was like, just looking like, where am I going? And they like, we don't know. Maybe you need to come over here and just sit and watch how we run this. Not that they ran theirs any better, but at least their continents didn't get sunk, right? But it wasn't all his fault, right? It wasn't all his fault. It really wasn't. But we can learn a few things from Waga. Shebrew. So America, Africa, and others were not named after the captives. We were told as Hebrews that the lands were named after the white captives. Yeah, that's a bunch of garbage. No. Yeah, it was named after, according to Owaspy, right? According to Owaspy, it was named after the lords who were ruling over that particular house or that particular country, right? And I think that's true. We do that. That's been happening everywhere, right? it still happens today. We name places that we find after us. We name our children after us. We put our names on streets and stuff. If you're in charge of something, remember, it's always a person first. Then the place is named after the person. That's normally how it is. Or you name it after your children, your businesses, whatever, right? That's always been a process. So first starting off, the captives may have renamed some stuff or went back using some, I ain't gonna say original names, but when they write the story, they make it look like they were the ones that did everything. When they weren't, right? They weren't the first ones here. They weren't, y'all get it. Yeah, those are lies. Alisa, shalom, shalom. I'm gonna have to do something about these notifications. They pluck my nerves. Then making the sign of Jehovah's name with his right hand, he came down to the foot of the throne, and taking the hand of Waga, Lord of Waga, he said, "Arise, my son, and go thy way, and Jehovah will bless thee." Waga rose up and stood aside, and then in like manner God raised the other four lords, and they stood aside also. The marshals filed past the throne, saying, The marshals filed past the throne, saluting, and after them the lords saluting also. Then came the Asaphs, and lastly the Ashars, and the procession passed between the pillars of fire with which God's laborers had adorned for it. This was the beginning of the reign of the lords of the earth. And that is where we pause at today. We have 36 minutes. We did pretty good. We're still over about 6 minutes, but I like to at least finish the chapter. Okay, so we'll pick this back up with chapter 3 Sunday, because we won't be here tomorrow, right? I got some much needed rest that's awaiting me. I probably won't sleep in simply just because of everything that's going on. So I'm going to steal some time and sleep in. I'm going to try to sleep in, but if not, I may try to take me a nap. I always say I'm going to take a nap, but the naps never see me for nap time. And then I'm still going to bed late working on stuff. But after this week, because Sunday is the last day of this term, I'm pushing to actually have my final paper turned in by Sunday morning. In the perfect world, I would want to have my paper turned in at least 3, maybe 4 days early. Get a little bit of feedback from the professor, make some last minute changes, and get a perfect paper. But clearly that ain't happened yet. So, all right, y'all. Hop on over here to Delusions in Science and Spirituality. We are still in chapter 7 of this Reincarnation chapter, Body Snatching for Karma. We're on page 308, and I'm going to reread this. I'm going to just start back at the top of the page and reread like this little quote, and then we'll just go on from here. I've been reading Antiquity Unveiled, and the process of stealing and renaming it is the forte of the haters of Creator. It's always been their forte, right? Yeah. We can see it everywhere. We can see it everywhere, right? Whoever controls the pen can pretty much control the story, right? You control the pen, you control the printing presses, you can control everything. It's the people who know the truth that need to now start getting more pens and getting more businesses and controlling some of the stuff that we putting out. Start writing curriculums, right? Get them. If they don't accept the curriculums, start your own school, right? And then people will have a choice. Will I send them to their school, or do we want to send them where real history is being taught? Not that it's not bits and pieces being taught in places, because it is, right? But they teach it with a certain mindset that still have you all chopped and screwed up. Brian, yo, shalom. All right, y'all, page 308. Quote, suppose an inventor passes on before completion of his invention, hypothesized one of Dr. Wickland's discarnate guests in an effort to illustrate this kind of influence. Remember, so we paused with this yesterday, and a lot of people who get genius things. They finish inventions. A lot of times they're not necessarily overshadowed, but they are in a way where the thoughts of the previous inventor or the previous poet, whoever, they impress those thoughts on a person who's ready to receive it, and they can kind of continue on their work. And it's not really reincarnation, but it's a type of overshadowing where they pass those thoughts to them, and then they publish it and they receive credit for it, and it still gets out there in the world, right? Okay. Maybe we should have. No, that was a good recap. Okay. Quote: suppose an inventor passes on before completion of his invention, hypothesized one of Dr. Wickland's discarnate guests in an effort to illustrate this kind of influence. So this was a spirit talking to Dr. Wickland, right? Doing his research, this is what it said. Quote: he will not give up. He studies it on the spirit side of life. He finds some mortal sensitive and impresses the invention on his mind. Then that one perfects it and gives it to the world. If I impress a sensitive with an idea, in one sense I reincarnate, not in his body, but by impressing him with what I want done. Everything that is invented on earth has first been invented in the spirit world. End quote. 1924. Rapport. It is relevant, I think, that Joseph Dunninger, the famous mentalist, was convinced that inventors, intrigued with his telepathy, were flocking to him because they themselves received impressions and ideas, quote, that seemed to come from some outside source, end quote. Ebon, 1971, page 136. This is inspiration in its most literal sense. It isn't past life, and it isn't memory, and it isn't the subconscious. It may not even be insight, but what it does imply is an ASC, or an altered state of consciousness. Albert Einstein, for one, cheerfully admitted that the theory of relativity came to him mystically. Isaac Newton, for another, made a point of literally sleeping on his most troublesome mathematical problems. The dream state is but another ASC, or it's another altered state of consciousness. Likewise, Thomas Edison was a flylight. Likewise, Thomas Edison was a flylight, deliberating, taking cat naps at his desk to escape his beta brain, oftentimes waking up with the solution to a stubborn problem. And like Socrates of ancient Greece, the American statesman Josiah Quincy believed he was inspired in an important crisis by his own daemon. He would sometimes declare that the happy choice of his wife had indeed been made in heaven. And I first heard about it, but when we started off reading, we were reading about this in My Big Toe. Remember Big Toe? Toe is short, and it's an acronym for Theory of Everything, My Big Theory of Everything. But it's shortened My Big Toe, and it's a trilogy series. We're going to go back to that because we only read book 1, right? But I think some of this stuff, filling in, will help us along the way, because the next 2 books, it gets into a lot of scientific jargon, but he tried to keep it as down to earth and understandable in terms where it's we can understand what they're saying without it sounding like a bunch of blah, 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 blah. What? Right? But they're pretty good. But we're going to get back to them. I'm not exactly sure where, because I think we need some side roads to understand some of this stuff a little bit better with what he was talking about. But he gives awesome examples. And all of those you can get on Kindle, you can get on Audible, the entire trilogy, all 3 books, or you can get them in printed form. I got all of them, right? Because sometimes I want to read it on the go. Sometimes I want to listen to it. Sometimes I actually want to sit down and flip through it and highlight it. So really good one for your reference library while you're developing spiritually, because that's what we also first learned about Dr. I call him Doctor. I say Robert Monroe, right? Remember Robert Monroe? He took it a little bit further. Well, the author of My Big Toe actually met him, and when he mentioned him in there, Robert Monroe gives more to the story from some of these experiments that they were doing when the author of My Big Toe was actually learning this stuff. So he shared the experiments, and it just gets more into the spiritual side and Robert Monroe stuff and how they tested different things. Even now where they have a whole, I'll say, university here in Virginia teaching you on the spirit and how to develop spiritually, tap into the spirit, the safe places, the places that are not so safe. They've actually labeled different places in the spirit that they've noticed, and they recorded like this. They've done some deep research, right? And it's scientific, and every time they do it, it happens to the T, like they've experienced it, right? So people that are growing spiritually, that want to start looking more into that spiritual side, right? And it's good because you have to develop it. They've just figured out how to do it in a safe manner without you just getting out there watching a bunch of YouTube videos and trying stuff. If you want to try it and develop that part, especially if you already have an active spiritual life and you're just trying to figure out what in the world is happening, what is going on, I would recommend Robert Monroe. His books, read his books, all of them, they're on Audible as well, right? You can print them. You can go to his website, right? Google Robert Monroe Institute, right? I'd say they're safe. All right. Let's see. Likewise, Thomas Edison was a fly-light, deliberately taking cat naps at his desk. Oh, that's why I started talking about this. Because that's what the author of My Big Toe learned how to do, because he was an engineer. And so his work required him to do a lot of engineer type work, right? Numbers, inventions, all of this stuff, getting stuff to work. And he found out, he learned how to meditate appropriately. And in the art of meditating, taking what we would call little cat naps or just meditating, he started like the long way learning how to do it. And then once he realized the process on how it was happening, he no longer had to, like, y'all, when I say that's how it's supposed to happen. They started off meditating, setting aside a time like an hour or whatever. But as he began to track data and numbers and stuff and how all of this was working with the body, he was able to cut his long meditation sessions down to like maybe 20 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, especially if there was a problem he needed to solve. He knew that we call it the meditation state, would help him solve the problem. So even while at work, if he had a break, he would kind of go off, go do a little meditation and come back with the answer. He quickly became the go-to person for figuring out everything at his place of employment, right? It'll excel you a whole lot faster. He just learned how to do it, right? So that's what I'm in the process of doing, right? I don't want to spend, I love the long hours of meditation and just quietness and peace. But sometimes, especially with our business and how we want it to grow, sometimes I need like answers like right now. So without all of the long set aside, getting comfortable, fixing my pillow, focusing my mind, doing all of that, I'm trying to sharpen it to where I can just tune right in real quick, get the answer, and go on about my day, right? And if you get it, if you understand it and what's happening real good, you can whittle that hour's time down to like 5 minutes, and you will have that same type of rest, like spiritually, in that 5 minutes that you used to get from doing it in like a whole hour or multiple hours or even multiple days, right? But that comes with practice and time and understanding the process and what's happening, right? You have to really become like a well-oiled machine. I'm still just like in the beginning stages of this, right? All right. Dawn, right? Jamia, shalom, shalom. Okay. Likewise, Thomas Edison was a fly-light, deliberately taking cat naps at his desk to escape his beta brain, oftentimes waking up with the solution to a stubborn problem. And like Socrates of ancient Greece, the ancient statesman Josiah Quincy believed he was inspired in important crises in his own daemon. Hold on. What? The American statesman Josiah Quincy believed he was inspired in important crises by his own demon. He would sometimes declare that the happy choice of his wife had indeed been made in heaven. But when the artist or composer or author or inventor claims to be the incarnation of some great genius of the past, let us smile, remembering that the word genius itself, variance, genie, jinn, suggests a subtle form of spiritual rapport, mind to mind, less rare than we think, and also less bizarre than the riddle of reincarnation. Joel Witten, PhD, a reincarnationist, observed that the patient, quote, instinctively accepted these characters as himself, end quote. Witten and Fisher, 1986, page 85. Well, yes, of course. Most people are not aware of the invisible guest, or geist, or ghost. And if a spirit comes to you, you might, quote, absorb his forces and then think it is an echo of your own mind, end quote. Newbro, 1874, page 55. We need a better understanding of these guests and visitors. Susie Smith, who was a well-known 20th century psychic, author, and ghost hunter, was once afflicted with a malevolent spirit in her sleep. Waking up in a fright, she realized, quote, I was myself somehow confused or identified, end quote, with the intruding entity. Susie Smith, 1970, B, page 153. In a similar haunting, an old ghost made his appearance in a householder's sleep. Quote, in the nightmare, Jim saw himself as an old Indian wrapped in a blanket, choking to death, end quote. Scott and Norman, 1985, page 434. But it was, of course, not himself, simply some spirit in rapport with Jim. The next session is entitled Impressions. Nini, shalom, says Gloria, shalom, shalom. Shortly after the tragic death of his son, America's Bishop James Pike was interviewed and questioned on these phenomena. In cases of reincarnation, Pike said, when a person thinks he's recalling certain things from past lives, he is perhaps being, quote, possessed by the deceased person, end quote. Editors, Psychic, 1972, page 148. Medical personnel have commented on a similar form of possession, not reincarnation, that may come up into play after surgical procedures involving organ transplants. England's Sue Allen, for instance, familiarizes us with a few such cases where the, quote, recipient of the donor organs start to have memories, read impressions, that are not theirs or cravings that they did not have prior to the operation, end quote. Allen, 2007, page 123. I remember when I read this, I just remember this story that I read about this older white guy who was a stone cold racist. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say he had ties to the Ku Klux Klan. He had an operation, I forget which organ. I want to say it was a heart transplant, right? I want to say it was a heart transplant. And after the operation, he began to have this love for rap and R&B music. I'm like, yeah, he didn't receive the brother's heart, right? And people thought it was strange. But even in that, it be kind of, even though he was still part of the brotherhood, the Ku Klux Klan or whatever, I'm sure in his last days, as he softened, he probably began to treat people of other colors with, I don't know, it don't say, but I'm just saying, you can't listen to rap and R&B for long without learning to love the people who produce such music, right? You begin to look into them like, man, they got this kind of groove going on about them, and in the way they walk, the way they talk. I mean, you got to start taking notice of these type of things, right? And every race or nationality of people has their own thing that they're really good at, right? It's the part of the ingredients of the bigger whole that everybody brings to the table and put it together and you make something even more beautiful, right? It's amazing. There may be striking behavior changes as well. Alan, a depossession therapist, is then given the task of releasing those donor spirits, wandering spirits, lost spirits, not past lives. When the reincarnationist mindset comes upon a totally different personality, whether through hypnosis or in revelry recall, it is then assumed that the subject has regressed beyond the latest birth to a past lifetime. But shouldn't we first try to find out if the information is coming from some lost soul wandering about in the outer darkness? Though reincarnationists often claim to have eliminated every other possibility to explain such memories, they have skated right past the most important clue, the telepathic powers of the psyche. When you go on a psychic fishing expedition like the Ouija board or, quote, encouraged regression, there is no telling what big fish you might net. The outer darkness has a population problem equal to that of us earthlings. And how would reincarnation address the formidable puzzle of MPD? Remember, MPD is multiple personality disorder. Nazarene is saying shalom, shalom. And how would reincarnation address the formidable puzzle of MPD, multiple personality disorder, people beset by sometimes a dozen or more distinct personalities? Imagine 86 different personas reincarnating in one body. In such instances, invading spirits often want the host to remain unaware, weak, anorexic, depressed, and confused so they can continue to play their part through them, supplying perhaps strength, cleverness, vitality to their host, or even absorbing their pain. The shadow person then convinces everyone involved, sometimes even the therapist, that he is a, quote, coping mechanism, end quote. Moreover, the usual strategy is for him to be integrated or fused with the core personality. This is SOP in most psychoanalysis. This is SOP in most psychoanalysis. SOP, I'm assuming, would stand for standard operating procedure. That's what I'm thinking. At least that's what I know it to be. I'm putting things together in business. This is standard operating procedure in most psychoanalysis. On the flip side of that coin, the therapist himself may be goaled into a past life interpretation. As an example, entities attached to Catherine called themselves master spirits when Catherine started seeing Dr. Brian Weiss for her chronic anxieties. And when she began recalling scenes from those entities' lives, the psychiatrist was so enthralled that he missed all the outstanding signs of obsession and possession and dashed full tilt into the world of reincarnation. Quote, such angels as engraft themselves on mortals, becoming as a twin spirit to the one corporal body, shall be known as reincarnated spirits. By fastening on, they dwell in that corporal body, oft driving hence the natural spirit. End quote. That's found in Owaspy, Book of Bond, chapter 14, verse 9. It is precisely the illusion of reincarnation that keeps unwanted spirits anchored in the host body with no one to address them or chase them out, no one to challenge their presence where it does not belong. These clinging entities, which need to move upward into the spirit realm, are known in India by their Sanskrit names, Nidhanas and Tanhaus, fixated on the earthly plane, desiring rebirth. Spirit obsession is the next session. Quote, as a drowning man clingeth to a log, So cling the Druhas, earthbound spirits to mortals, end quote. That's found in Owaspy, Book of Lika, chapter 22, verse 11. Professor Stevenson, we had an hour. Let me read these last couple paragraphs and we're going to pause. Professor Stevenson thought that one of his subjects, M, had been reborn as the son of a liquor store owner because of his past life love of drink. Even before young M could speak, he showed the, quote, previous personality's fondness for alcohol. As such, the convenience of his mother's abundant supply seemed, quote, a sufficient explanation for the previous personality's apparent rebirth as her son, end quote. Stevenson, 1987, page 242. But compare, if you will, this apparent rebirth with similar cases of, quote, frank possession, end quote, in which the victim, a non-drinker, suddenly becomes an alcoholic or begins to crave substances he never cared for previously. Fior, 1987, page 70. Having learned that Professor Stevenson rejected spirit overshadowing in favor of previous personalities, I contacted his successors at the University of Virginia and asked where I might find the professor's argument against possession. Cordially, they referred me to one of his books, Children Who Remember Past Lives. Eagerly, I turned to the chapter indicated, but I found only 2 short paragraphs devoted to the matter. Stevenson, I was told by a mutual colleague, was a lovely guy, and he had considerable knowledge of the paranormal. Reincarnation, he told his readers, should be adopted only after we have eliminated all alternative explanations. But how did he eliminate possession? Hastily, in a mere 8 sentences, and ineffectively. First of all, he argued that since children usually forget about their past lives by age 7 or 8, this militates, M-I-L-I-T-A-T-E-S. I think they said militate. First of all, he argued that since children usually forget about their past lives by age 7 or 8, this militates against the presence of a possessor. But how so? Perhaps it could equally militate against reincarnation. The argument is never developed or explained. As we have seen, children are most impressionable in their earliest years and soon grow out of the natural clairvoyance of infancy, which condition enabled them to get wind of other lives. Secondly, Professor Stevenson contended that possession cannot explain, quote, stimulation of the subject's memories by visits to the family of the previous personality, end quote. Why not? Is this a valid basis for ruling out the presence of an entity? Not at all. It might even argue for it. Finally, Stevenson, paradoxically, cites the inability of his subjects to know about changes that have taken place since the death of their previous personality. Again, the reasoning is obscure, and the assumption is made that a possessing spirit would have such knowledge. Why assume that? One prominent theosophist, in fact, has pointed out that people in the heaven world are not in direct touch with affairs on earth. They could not know what might be taking place in this world. End quote. What's more, the same writer quotes Stevenson's case of Shanti Dev in Delhi, India, who, when taken to her former life village, began pointing out changes that had taken place in the past few years. Perkins, 1977, page 170 and 115. Stevenson's contradictory arguments, therefore, leaves me flummoxed. What? I ain't never heard this word in my life. I mean, I heard it in this book. I still haven't looked it up. Flummoxed or flabbergasted, maybe. F-U-M-M-O-X-E-D. Stevenson's contradictory argument, therefore, leaves me flummoxed. I probably said that wrong. Today, spirit obsession is still with us, but under a different name. What used to be called demons is now called neurosis. In our collective ignorance of spiritual matters and our derived to banish the superstitions of the past, and in our own fear of unseen powers, we hang on the idea of man as a finite, boxed-off being, strictly made up of flesh and blood and nothing more, denying, even contemptuously, his subtle nature, his spiritual life, his very soul. The stigma of demons or hellish personas infesting self is repugnant to our rational sensibility. We reject it, but then rechristen it, erroneously calling all the spirit freeloaders alters, MPD, or alternately past lives. By ignoring the true source, effectively banning it, we empower it, for we thus enable the reckless spirit of re-embodiment, leaving it to do its mischief unnoticed. For example, when an ambitious psychic named Carl V., as Malachi Martin tells the story, set out to discover his own past lives, he was caught instead in the clutches of diabolical possession, right? Oh, you looking for... Somebody looking for past lives. Come on. Gather up. How many? 7, at least 7? No, we need at least 7. We can go possess them. He looking for past lives. So he lining himself up to what we want to do, right? Be careful. Listen. We reject it, but then rechristening it, erroneously calling all these spirit freeloaders alters, MPD, or alternately past lives. And by ignoring the true source, effectively banning it, we empower it, for we thus enable the reckless spirit of re-embodiment, leaving it to do its mischief unnoticed. For an example, when an ambitious psychic named Carl V., as Malachi Martin tells the story, set out to discover his own past lives, he was caught instead in the clutches of diabolical possession. In one case of MPD, the multiple Henry Hawksworth disliked his alter Johnny. Johnny is not me, he protested. Yet he wears my body and ruins my world. Sometimes the patient himself, not the doctor, correctly diagnoses the problem. In Through Divided Minds by Dr. Mayer, that's what it's called, Through Divided Minds, Dr. Mayer mentions a multiple patient who heard voices berating and cursing him. Quote, the patient was convinced he was possessed by a Dybbuk, a Jewish demon that would yell at him. End quote. Mayer, 1988. Dybbuk, or D-Y-B-B-U-K, traditionally refers to the spirit of a dead person. Dr. Adam Crabtree, in a similar case, describes his patient feeling controlled by, quote, an entity other than himself. In other words, he feels possessed, end quote. Crabtree, 1985. When the author, Taylor Caldwell, was regressed to find out her supposed past lives, she came out of trance, commenting, quote, I feel as if I'm two people, end quote. The various lives of the eccentric Miss Caldwell give us pause. A quirky woman, the famous novelist, I believe, was keenly clairvoyant, not reincarnated. Quote, tremendously psychic, end quote, breathed her biographer, Jess Stern, in The Search for a Soul, though he proceeded to bill her as a reincarnator of the highest order. But even Taylor did not go for the hype. Quote, I have read many books on reincarnation, and the very thought of it horrifies me, end quote. But Stern liked it, felt, quote, it was an exciting thought, end quote. He believed that he himself had come from Saturn. He himself believed that he had come from Saturn to help Taylor, also having lived in the 19th century as poet Robert Browning. Taylor's recalls, of course, were prompted, quote, the hypnotist had suggested she remember her past life, end quote. Hey, babe.
You want to speak to me this morning?
Yeah, I was just trying to finish the sentence.
I got you.
Hold on.
See how I get you?
Yeah, babe, you always be throwing me off. Like, whew, so infatuated with you.
I got something to throw you off. And I'll bring you back.
Hold on. I'm gonna meet you for that ride in a minute. Listen, he believed that he himself had come from Saturn to help Taylor, also having lived in the 19th century as poet Robert Browning. Taylor recalls, of course, were prompted, quote, the hypnotist had suggested she remember her past life, end quote. Predictably, the settings were history's most alluring Malays: Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, Jerusalem, China, Mexico, Peru, France, England, and Florence, Italy. Yet it was not through recall that flashes of the past came to her, but through her own undeveloped but potent mediumistic powers. Quote, an undeveloped sensitive can very easily be taken unawares. End quote. Ena Twigg, the woman who stunned the world. We'll pause right there.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Pause it. Wrap it up.
Look, we can pause
Wrap that
right
equipment up. And
Wrap it up, B.
Play on.
All right, y'all. So that's it for today. I said I was just going to finish reading a couple paragraphs anyway before my husband came down here. So that's right on time. All right, y'all. So that is it for today. This is really good. Hold on. Oh, we almost done with this chapter, y'all. We might actually finish this Sunday when we come back. So this is possible. It's possible. We may. At the very latest, we're going to finish it Monday. Then we're going to hop back over here to Feel God to the Spirit Realm to finish up the last chapter in this book. But we're going to still, after this chapter, it's a couple more chapters entitled The Appendix, and they're really good. And we absolutely have to read the appendixes because there's more stories in there about trauma and a lot of stuff. And I think Appendix C we read already, but we're going to reread it because it was a reference given in an earlier chapter. But when we get to it, you guys remember what it was. All right, so beautiful people, it is Friday, January the 20th, 2023, day 320 of year 4 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1,339. We read pages 13 through 17 in Romance of the Red Star, a biography of the earth. Remember that it's simply just another name for OASP, written by different publishers. And in Big Blue, that was pages, the beginning of Satantes. That was page 14 to 17.
Oh, good.
And in Delusions and Science and Spirituality, we read a little bit more of chapter 7 from pages 308 to 313.
You read all that today?
Yeah. I mean, it's normal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang, I'll be getting in. How many books y'all gonna read in a day? 10?
It would seem to be so. No, it's always 2.
But y'all read 1, 2, y'all read 4?
No. Okay, so these are the 2.
Good Lord.
But then this is also this. So we transition to this, right? So we're still reading this. And while reading this, it gave us a reference over here. So we set this down for the moment while we're reading a reference, which is a whole chapter, a deeper insight on reincarnation. When we're done with this chapter, we're putting this aside and we're going back to this. So we still just got the 2, although it looked like multiple books in front of me.
All right.
We're just reading 2.
Really good. Okay.
I just grab all the stuff every morning because I want to be prepared because I got to flip through and give them page reference for a Big Blue. Yeah, no, you get it. All right. Whatever. All right.
You funny.
Look, Father, not only do we thank you for the light of the sun that helps everything grow, but we thank you for the light of kindred spirits and family spirits that shines out, that also warms us with their presence, their wisdom, their power, their peace, their love, right? Because it's also a part of our growth. So thank you for the sunlight that comes from one another, right? Yes. All right, beautiful people.
Thank you.
I love y'all. I will see y'all back here. Not tomorrow, right? This moon cycle, the Sabbath, actually fall on Saturdays, right? So we're going to be here tomorrow. I see y'all back here Sunday, right? Bright and early. But remember, on the weekends, it's always 7:30. So you sleep in a little bit. See y'all back here 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Peace. Prince. Shalom. All right, beautiful people. Peace.